What's going on, Rockstar? Welcome back to another episode of The 1% Life. I'm your host, peak performance coach and trainer, Joanie Dillon, and today we are talking about what happens when you live your life for other people. Rockstar, I know that in my past, I have made decisions on my life based on what other people wanted for me. And maybe you feel like this is you too, where perhaps your parents, your significant other, your spouse, your siblings, your culture may be in your mind putting certain pressures upon you to be something that you may not want to be. And maybe you're feeling these pressures in your relationships, who you should be dating, who you could be married to or should be married to rather. And these pressures from other people have influenced the decisions in your life. If this is the case, Rockstar, today's episode's for you. And we're going to talk about why it is imperative that you stop living your life for all of those other people out there and you begin to now live it for you. If you're joining us live on Facebook, type a 1 in the comments if it's your first time. Type a 2 if you've been here before and you are rejoining us today. And let us know where you're tuning in from. If you are joining us on one of our podcasting platforms, iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, or iHeartRadio, or any of the other Google Plays and other platforms out there, welcome to the 1% Life Show. If I could ask you a favor to just tag somebody or share this episode out if you have received value from the 1% Life, and if you receive value from today's show in particular. So we're going to get into this topic. It's a real interesting one for me, Rockstar, because there's just been some things coming up in my life that in the past were reoccurring patterns for me. Meaning, culturally, I grew up in an East Indian family. My parents immigrated to this country in 1968, and I believe 68. And, I was born in the States, in the US, in Lafayette, Indiana. Yes, an Indian from Indiana. Actually, I'm an American. Now, am I an American Indian? No. Just an Indian. American Indian. Whatever. You get the point. An American. With East Indian ethnicity. Like, that's the proper way to say, what are you? What's your ethnicity? For all of you wondering. I digress. So the reality is, Rockstar, that my parents moved here when I wasn't even born yet. And I grew up in a culture where there were a lot of, expectations. And whether those expectations were quote unquote real or not, they were certainly perceived on my part. What do I mean by that? What do I marry by that? Okay, we'll get into marriage. So growing up, there was expectations that you would marry within your culture. Maybe you've experienced this within your family and your religion. From what I hear, Jewish people are supposed to marry Jewish people, Muslim people, Christians. That rule has been broken. Can we all agree that it definitely has been broken? And if we have experienced the pressure from our families, it can be a real thing for us. And the other thing that kind of came up for me, so luckily, I think that's a really not so cool word to use in this context, but so my mom passed when I was 20 years old, and not being really raised as an adult with my mother, who really cared about what people thought about her. Like my mom, God rest your soul, love you, mama. People really care. She really cared about what others thought about her. And, just a beautiful woman inside and out, yet was really impressioned by other people, meaning what others thought of how she looked, how she dressed, her kids, and all of that really mattered to her. And I remember being a kid and my mom not liking who my sister dated. And, for whatever reason, maybe he I remember he didn't finish college. That was like the big thing. Like he didn't finish college. okay. And now we look at all the people who didn't finish college and all of the incredible companies and businesses that they've created and built, right? As if college is the only way to achieve success. Now, I also had pressures growing up. If you're Asian American or Asian period, you get this. Like, you're just supposed to go into the sciences and the maths. And that was not me. It was not me. So by the time my sister, I'm the youngest, so she's 11 years older, my brother 8 years older, went off to college, ended up going to medical school. They got their doctor, they got their electrical engineer, turned AI, who knows what dude now. I was like, that's not me. And I literally remember picking up the phone after just realizing I had failed my calculus test in college. Like, going to college, first of all, let me go back a second. Going to college was not an option for me. There was no, would you like to go to college, Joanie? Hell no. There was no, it would be nice if you went to college. What would you like to be when you grow up? No, none of that. No, in fact, I didn't even get celebrated for A's. Like, it was an expectation that you just got A's, like straight A's. And if you got a B, well, you better do some serious explaining, because if my mom hadn't caught the B before the B was coming, something, meaning she communicated with all my teachers, something was going on. Like, not good. Like, what happened? And so I remember getting that F on a midterm in calculus, freaking the what out. Like, I am not this person. I'm not cut out for this. I don't want to be a doctor, which was like the option. I don't want to be an engineer, which was like the other option. Maybe some of you out there can relate. Those pressures from your parents to be something, maybe even to just carry the lineage of your family forward, the business that's been in your family, or the same profession that your mother or father held. My father wanted me so badly to be a scientist. I think that was like the other alternative. Like, if you're not gonna be a doctor, you're not gonna be an engineer, will you be a scientist? No, Dad, I'm not gonna be a scientist either. And I remember that day, I was a freshman in college, having to call my mom, crying from this, place at the University of Washington called the IBB, if I recall correctly. And I was like, Mom, I can't do this. And she said, just drop out, forget it, drop out of it. And I felt judged. I felt really relieved. Yet I felt really judged. Like, I had failed her in some way. I had failed my mother's expectations of what she thought I was going to be. And it was only about 2 years later, 2.5 years later, that my mom passed from cancer, from leukemia, a rare type of leukemia. And then it just got even crazier, right? Because I had in my mind, in my subconscious mind, I had her shoes to live in. Like, my mom cared so much about what other people thought about her. I had to fulfill that, I mean, why would I just let that go? No, I had to take on that role. And of course, that wasn't conscious thought, because that sounds kind of ludicrous, right? But to this day, I still, things continue to surface from time to time. Recently, my brother, my partner asked me, very different. My partner asked me, did that ever show up in your mom? And I said, yeah, it did. Wow, it did. And he says, well, for what purpose are you deciding to hold on to that for you? It's probably different words than that. And I didn't really know. It wasn't a conscious behavior, or it wasn't a conscious belief, rather. Whatever it was, I don't quite recall at this moment, and it's not the point. The point is that we carry things, expectations for others, and judgments, and if I don't do this or be this, then they will think this of me. Maybe you can relate. And the reality is that when we do that, when you decide to be, do, or have something, a certification, a degree, an education, a certain partner in your life, to be of a certain occupation, whatever it is, to quit smoking because someone else wants you to stop smoking. Well, first of all, you probably won't succeed. But when you do things for other people, what happens often on top of resentment, the resentment happens because you're not doing it for you. You're doing it to please somebody else. And when you do something to please somebody else, you're not doing it for you. And therefore, there's a feeling of obligation to somebody else. Like, I gotta do this for them. But if you're doing it for them, then what are you doing for you? And whose life are you living? See, I remember relationships in my past where I was very secretive about them because I didn't believe that my family would like the person I was dating. I just didn't believe that they would. Maybe they weren't, didn't have enough education. They weren't, degreed up enough. They didn't have a certain background, or maybe they just came from a family that I thought maybe my parents wouldn't, respect. And because of that, I literally lost relationships, one of which was a really great relationship because I didn't make him feel like he was my everything. In fact, it was very obvious to him that he was not my everything, that I wouldn't even take him around my family for 7 years until the very end. And it's because I wanted them to think that I was someone I wasn't. I wanted them to think that I wasn't in the relationship that I was. I wanted them to not, and he was an amazing man. He still is, the father to my doggy, right? And the reality is that I was living my life for somebody else. And I remember that day when I called my mom and I said, Mom, I'm dropping out of this calculus class. It's freaking hard. I can't do it. I'm not cut out for it. I literally remember saying, I'm not going to med school. I'm not going to be in the sciences. I'm not going to be a doctor. I remember that conversation and how intense it was for me to tell and admit to my mom, to tell my mom and admit to her that I was about to crush her dreams. It felt devastating. It felt devastating. And it was probably in that moment in time that I took on certain beliefs, and just having to please others and feeling like I let them down, if I didn't do the thing they wanted me to do. And it's no way to live. It's no way to live. Here's what I realized. What I've realized over my years, my 40 young years of living, is that no matter who you're with, you're always going to be judged. No matter who your partner is, somebody's not going to think they're good enough for you. No matter how accomplished they are, someone's not going to believe they're right for you. No matter how good they are to you, someone's going to have an opinion. No matter what you do, there are going to be people who look at you like, you do what for a living? How do you do that? Why would you want to do that? I had to, tell my dad at one point, after going to graduate school, having a business, starting a business that was failing, when the last economic crash happened and I needed to pay my bills, I had to tell my dad I was going to sell timeshare, you guys. Sell timeshare. Now, many of you listeners out there are in that world and you get it. You get the madness of that to other people. But you also get that you loved what you did or do. And it was real for you, right? You change people's lives. You put them on vacation. And I had to tell my dad that his, daughter with 3 degrees by that point, because I had to accumulate all the degrees or I just wouldn't be that good Indian daughter, compared to my sister who's a doctor and my brother who had a PhD, I think. I don't even know what he has at this point. No, master's, excuse me. Oh yeah, just a master's, right? But brilliant, brilliant, brilliant people. And I had to tell him I was going to go sell timeshare. And I had to change my belief in my mind around that career so that my dad would receive it differently. Like, I had to be proud of the career that I was owning. I had to literally sell myself on why I loved it so much and why it was the right career for me at that time. And when I sold myself on it, because I really believed it, I was pumped. I was like, man, I pay $75K to run a line of clothing through to hope to sell it in a down economy right now, 4 times a year. That's not happening right now. I got to put food on the table, have a mortgage to pay, and I actually really love putting people on vacation, and I love the product I sold. So I told my dad that, and I saw the income potential initially. I told my dad that, and you know what was cool? Was he actually was like, beta, which means daughter, if you're happy, I'm happy. And I was like, wow, that's cool. You can do anything. He says, you can do whatever you want. So was that my dad holding on to that, or was that me holding on to that fear and that belief as a child that projected through him? What if I could have just admitted at a young age and I wanted to be with a certain person, or that I believed I was going to be an entrepreneur and go sell timeshare, whatever the thing was, and go back to being an entrepreneur right after a failed business, like all this stuff. See, I believe that when we hold our convictions and our passions and what's in our heart, and we communicate that to those we love with passion and conviction, who cares how they decide to receive it? And I say that out of love. But if you care so much that you will do what they tell you to do, leave the profession, leave the person, do the thing you don't want to do, you're incongruent with it, it's not in your heart. Do you know how many people I know who are of East Indian descent that are going to medical school or have gone through medical school now and didn't want to be there? Who are forced to go do these things in their minds because if I don't do this, my parents won't be happy. It's ridiculous. The pressure is insane. And the parents think they're doing a good job. And look, it's not just Indian culture. God, I love my peeps, right? It's not. It's all over. That's just apples versus oranges. It could be anything. It could be your career. It could be who you date, who you marry, what hobbies you have or don't have, who your friends are. When you start to live your life for other people, you're living your life for no one. Because really, you're not happy. You're not happy. So you're certainly not living it for you. And if you're not living it for you, you're not living it to your true potential. You're not really doing what you do to a level of excellence or doing it well. You're not. Because there's a little bit of resentment there. You don't really want to be the dentist. You don't really want to be the doctor. You don't really want to be the engineer. You don't want to be the thing. Maybe you don't want to be in sales and your father was and he forced you into it. Or so you thought. And so you did. Sometimes we have to put our foot down and we have to stand firm. Sell ourselves why the person, the career, the thing is what we need and why it's for us. Because if we can't sell ourselves on it, how will we sell someone else on it? I can't tell you how many people I've talked to in the past who were so sold on coaching with me to go from the verge of termination to the top 1%, to be the best in their career that they could possibly be when all odds were against them. Yet their significant other wasn't sold and they could not sell them. And they would do what their significant other said. They were living their life because of their boyfriend or their girlfriend or their husband or their wife. Not, one time it was for their kid. Can you believe that? My 12-year-old son said, "Mommy, why are you spending the safety money?" Oh Lord, we've got bigger problems than what you think. When your 12-year-old son is telling you what to do, just how to spend your money, when the thing that you're spending your money on is for him. First of all, you shouldn't even know that, should he? So the reality, there's so much of this in the world, rock stars. There's so much. And I want you to look at your life right now. Where are you living your life for somebody else? And it could just be as simple as, I'm supposed to behave a certain way in quarantine. I'm supposed to behave or believe a certain thing. I'm wearing a mask because others expect me to wear a mask. So y'all might think I'm crazy, but I walked up in Whole Foods yesterday. I was going to go pick up my partner from the airport last night, and which is a whole nother crazy shit show from what I hear about traveling right now. And I had to make a run to Whole Foods. And it wasn't until, so I get in there, I'm like, oh, I probably shouldn't be touching this cart. Well, I can wash my hands, but just in case, what if I touch my mouth? All this stuff going through my head, And then I'm like, can I spray something? I'm like, here, don't spray this toxic spray. I just sprayed all over my hands. Spray this other toxic, sanitate, whatever, hand sanitizer, who knows what's in it. So I did that, and there was a sign that said, secure your mask. If you don't have one, we'll get one for you. Now, I was in a rush and I was in a hurry. And the funny thing is, I actually had a mask in my car. I've only worn it like twice in the last few months at the time this is being recorded. But I forgot and I didn't have time. And at the moment I was like, oh, F it. I don't care. I'm okay. It was 10 minutes for closing till closing, and there was barely anybody there. And it was really funny because everybody was running around dodging me as I was running around like a little tornado trying to get what I needed. And, I'm not trying to laugh about it, but sometimes we do things for other people. How many of you are wearing masks because you think it's the right thing to do? How many of you are behaving in a certain way because if you don't, someone in your life will judge you around that? What would happen if, Rockstar, you just decided to just be you? To say, who cares what they think? I'm not living my life for you. If I pick up the virus, which isn't going to happen, my unconscious mind protects me at all times. I know I'm safe and sound. And that's the projection I have. Now, for some of you, you may not understand that, and that's okay. I don't expect you to. But those of you who've been listening to me in the show for a long time, you know how to work with your subconscious mind. And you know that its job is to protect you. So if you program it to protect you, it can and it will and it does. So leverage it and stop living your life for everybody else who wants you to live it the way their expectations are, the way their belief systems are, the way their values are. You can choose to have your own values, your own belief systems, your own thoughts and opinions and ways of being that are totally incongruent with theirs. And who gives a what if somebody else thinks you should be a certain way? I know there's going to be somebody irritated at my message right now. They're going to be irritated if I said something else because they're just irritable people, most likely. And if you're not an irritable person and you got irritated, well, my apologies to you. But the reality is that someone's always judging you. I made it a policy in my life to really stop judging people, to just stop. Because how does it serve me to judge someone when I don't even know what shoes they have walked through? I don't know what they're going through. I don't know how they were raised, what their belief systems were, what their values imprinted upon them were, what anything in their life really is, or what they were doing 5 minutes ago that made them react in that way. I don't know. I don't know if somebody was a jerk on the freeway and cut me off because he's going to catch his mother's last breaths. I don't know that. So I choose at this point in my life to intentionally avoid judging other people, the decisions, the thoughts, the behaviors, the beliefs even that they have. And I'm a human, of course it happens, but I catch myself. And I think one of the things that makes us unique as human beings is that we all do have different beliefs and values and things that, make us unique. God, if everybody looked like me, it'd be a very not so exciting place. If everybody looked like you, I'm sure you could agree that, well, maybe you would think it would be exciting, but you get my point. We need diversity. Do we want a homogeneous belief system? Thoughts, behaviors, beliefs? No, it's freaking lame. We'd have nothing to complain about. The news would have nothing to talk about, right? We need people to be different. So in the end, in short, right? Like, this is about you putting, the proverbial line in the sand, drawing that line and stepping over it and looking at that thing in your life that you've been doing for somebody else. Maybe the job that you've held on to for way too long. Maybe the partner that you've not been treating right because of how somebody else thinks about them. Maybe the person that you're with and you don't want to be with. Maybe it's a belief system you hold that's not even yours, it's somebody else's. That you were just raised with that belief and you took it with you. Because why not? You didn't consciously do it, but you can consciously decide now to drop it, to change it, and to pivot. To change your belief, to adopt a new one, to change your job if now makes sense, to change anything in your life. Stop living your life for other people and begin now to live your life for you. You're worthy of it. If you enjoyed today's episode of The 1% Life, take a screenshot of it, tag me in it on Instagram or Facebook or any other platform, and share it out. Share it out. Let's get more people thinking bigger about how they can create new possibilities in their life, how they can dream bigger, how they can be more, and release those limiting belief patterns of the past that no longer serve them or serve you. Until next time, Rockstar, get out there and change some lives today. You deserve it, and they do too. Peace.